First and foremost, thank you, Senators Penn and Allen, for bringing this important measure. Obviously, it stirred up a lot of emotion and interest. I just want to be clear about the medical exemption. This is something that I've discussed the matter with you previously, and I'm happy to be a co-author. Yet, this area concerns me somewhat, only because I want to know, given if we lose the opportunity to have personal beliefs not available, in the case of the gentleman who was talking about his daughter who's perfectly healthy, if the first child has a reaction, would there be a medical exemption for the second child?
So the medical exemption...
Does it clearly allow that?
So what the law, the bill and the law clearly states is that the medical exemption is at the professional judgment of the physician. We took an amendment to absolutely clarify that point. And so what that means is that if the physician feels that a sibling of a child, because the condition may be genetic, it may be family related, that therefore that child is also at increased risk, even though that child has not yet suffered harm, then they can exercise their professional judgment to provide an exemption. That is, it's the professional judgment of the physician in terms of what they believe that if the risk of the immunization is going to be such that it's going to put that child at certain or near, basically at increased harm, then they can provide that exemption. And so that's to the judgment of of actually any licensed physician in the state of California. There's no requirement that you even have to go to a physician that you've seen multiple times in the past. The law clearly states that any licensed physician in the state of California can provide a medical exemption. Mainly, what they have to do is document the reason. They document the duration, and there's no limitation that could be indefinite, and they have to sign it, of course, saying that they're as a licensed physician. Then you get a medical exemption.
Okay, so, Mr. Chair, if you allow me to just follow up on a couple.
Please do, Assemblymember Nazarian.
So, okay. So then, if the parent, let's say the decision of the physician is to not allow, then the parent is left with the choice of going to either another doctor, or if maybe that is not available given regional constraints or various other issues, they will need to oblige. What if the second child also has an adverse reaction? What happens at that time?
So, I think one of the things we have to be clear about is that the physician exercises professional judgment whether to grant a medical exemption based on assessment of risk to a particular child. And again, we take into account family history, other circumstances that are related to that particular child. All right. And of course, and as we discussed earlier, and we won't go through because of brevity of time, I think I've shared with you numerous studies, whether it's related to vaccination or other things, where physicians tend to bend rules toward and the benefit of a patient. Even though we are, we do also have to be cognizant of the larger public health issues as well. And that we also have to recognize is that as the physician is talking to the parent, right, they have to weigh, they're weighing the risk of the vaccination against the possibility of that child actually catching that disease. And of course, even if herd immunity, and with herd immunity decreasing, that probability is actually going up, right? So 20 years ago, measles, measles actually, we didn't even have 100 cases in the whole country. We had 40, 80 cases. Now, we had 600 in the whole country last year. So as physicians are working with the parents trying to assess risk, they have to think about there's the vaccine, right, and what the rationale is, right? Clearly, if they have an immune compromise, et cetera, there may be some more areas that are gray areas, and that's a judgment call. And then they have to weigh that against the probability of that child actually catching the disease and catching it from someone else, right? And saying that how that balances out. And so, again, physicians work with their parents. In fact, let's go back to AB 2109. My dear opponents here who are now supporting the bill were right here testifying, saying that doctors were going to force people to get vaccinated by refusing to sign the form saying that they consulted. And we had a whole line of doctors here saying, no, I would sign the form. Even I may disagree, but I'm going to sign the form. And once we implemented the bill, this first year of implementation, we have not had a situation where we had large groups of parents going around saying that they couldn't get someone to sign the form because doctors were refusing because they wanted to force people to get vaccinated. That didn't happen. In fact, I'm now hearing the opponents declaring a total success. And that's great. It's actually, things are better than they thought. So I think that's also testimony that doctors actually want to work with their patients. Just like, and that's what's going to happen.
By the way, my example was an extreme one.
Yeah.
The point I'm trying to make, though, is I think it would be beneficial to find room in the legislation to whether you want to be specific or it's already been made broad, but if there could be something that allows for genetic predisposition or adverse reaction to a sibling or family member to be placed in, it would at least offer me a certain comfort of mind knowing that a need is being addressed.
Right. And I would reply,
it's not the belief.
Right.
It's.
And what I would reply is that we leave wide discretion to the physician. Even the opponents have stated that that people have not identified that the genetic association with vaccine, et cetera, vaccine problems. That there's a genetic, they can point to a particular gene or something that they said there needs to be more work on that. I think people are working very hard to be sure we keep their vaccines very safe, and they are. But that is something that a physician can exercise that discretion. As I said, it's not just what happened to that one child. We take account of family history. That includes genetics and other types of things, and making a decision and weighing that against what's the risk to that patient. And we work with parents. That's what doctors do. I certainly appreciate Dr. Gordon does that. Dr. Blumberg does that. I do that. Other physicians as well. And that's what's going to happen, and that's going to create. I think that basically addresses the issue that you're talking about, because if doctors aren't going to work with their patients, we have a whole different set of problems.